What goes into building scalable systems so that you cater millions of Indians at Swiggy?
Okay, so it all starts with a vision. Okay, so what is that you want to build? For population scale systems, right? So it always starts with a very small experiment, right? Before you build large population scale systems, what we do is always we do with a idea, and then we convert that idea to an experiment to validate. Is this the vision that based on the vision, will this idea work or not, right? So it always starts with the smaller experiments. If you look at specifically Instamart, we started with a very small, we set up target audience in probably Bangalore. And then we tested our hypothesis on towards that vision of building a grocery delivery, right? So I would say the first step is to look at the vision, and then the second is to build experiments, and then see if that experiment turns out good or not based on whatever you have thought. Right? Once you figured out, okay, you have the product market fit, and your idea is working out, and your hypothesis is working, and then you start thinking about how do you want to scale it out. Right? So this is a general guideline in terms of how you want to build scalable systems. Right? So that's the first ideation part to probably product market fit. And then once you have experiment getting worked out, and then you want to go ahead and then build more, or capture more market, then that's how you want to. That's when you want to probably start thinking about building systems. Right? So up at that point, it is always only like probably building smaller systems that can really be functional, and then cater to the needs of the consumers, and see if consumers are really loving the product and they are kind of trying to use those products. Correct. So, and beyond that, once you have like I said, the product market fit, and then start thinking about how do you want to scale it. So once you at that point in time, that is where you take a decision of what is the tech stack that you want to use, and how do you want to define the architecture that is scalable to, say, for example, millions of consumers in India, and start thinking about what scalable platforms or products that you want to build. So once that decision comes in, and then you define the tech stack, and then start thinking about you want to build an ERP system, or you want to build a lot of techs, right? That can in the stores the people can use to pick goods and then send it to consumer. So that's how the whole journey will start in terms of building systems.
Got it. So hey guys, welcome back, and this time we have Ramkumar, who is working as a head of delivery at Instamart at Swiggy. Like, you must have heard about this, right? You use it day in, day out. And today we are going to have a random discussion about his whole journey from school time to college to getting into a service industry, and then transitioning into leadership positions at a product company such as Swiggy, Instamart, right? So stick around to gain some exciting and, you can say, remarkable insights from his whole journey, and how you as a student, right, can also plan your career accordingly, and picking up points whatever Ram puts out as, you can say, notes for you guys to work upon during your initial days, that helps you out to become a better developer, right? So stick around, and see you at the end. Okay, so Ramkumar, I can address you as Ram, or should I stick the full name?
You can call me Ram.
Yeah, okay. So Ram, could you walk us through your journey of over a decade and a half in industry, highlighting specifically on your transitions from a service company to such leadership roles at product company, and how challenging is that, and how did you pull that off, basically?
Sure. I'll give a background about how I started off with my IT career, and then I'll talk about some key projects, some positions that I have held in the service company, and then what made me think through how to move from service to a product based companies, and what did I do. It's not that simple or easy to move from service based organization to a product based organization.
Certainly.
So, right, and what did I do further in Swiggy, Instamart, to further accelerate my journey. So my career started way back in 2004-5, right? So that's when I started my professional career. Basically, I was an off-campus recruit to Cognizant. So in 2005 is when I started my journey with Cognizant as an entry-level trainee. We used to call them entry-level trainees at that point in time. So, and I had a huge admiration for Cognizant at that point in time, because there are very few companies that at that point in time had, a lot of names like Infosys, TCS, and Cognizant was one of them. So I was so very excited about joining Cognizant at that point in time, way back like 16, 17 years ago. So when I joined Cognizant, I had to go through a 3 months of rigorous training, right? So that's marked my transition from a academic over to a professional journey. So it was a very big difference in terms of how do you look at a problem statement while you study versus how do you look at a problem statement in the industry, correct? So that gives me a different perspective, right? So most of the times that you see out in academic is mostly theory and bit of problem solving, but here is always on the reverse, right? You look at problems and then apply theory to it, right?
Correct.
And then how to solve problems. So it is a combination. It basically works the reverse, right? So you look at the application of the problem first and then put theory behind it and then solve it. So the training was so rigorous. I actually got trained in mainframe those days. I'm not sure people here in Gen Zs wouldn't have, probably even seen mainframes, right? So we used to do, programming in Pascals, programming in mainframes those days, right? So that's how I started my journey. So I used to, stare at the black screen, in my initial days. So I worked for, large pharmaceutical, major in US. So that was my first assignment in Cognizant. So I started off with during my early days, and I've been a programmer for about 2.5 years in India, and then I got an opportunity to travel to US for the same client in 2007-ish, right, that time. So and till the time I was in offshore, in Chennai. The major things that helped me grow in my early stage of my career was to understand the business problem.
Correct.
So what problems are we trying to solve for consumers, right? So and how are we solving those consumers using the technology, right? So the what and how part of it was largely defined through my early stage of my career, right? So at that time, the customer communication or the client facing roles were very less at offshore, because that was primarily by our teams at onsite, right? While we are primarily focusing on development at offshore, how do you build, robust solutions? How do you build, how do I say some simpler solutions? Rather, I wouldn't say we wanted to build complex systems. How do you build simpler systems that can cater to the need of many people? That is where we were focusing on at my early days. Then I got a transition, from an offshore to an on-site lead. So there, it gave me a lot of, I would say, knowledge about how consumers see a problem, right? So how consumer perceives a problem statement and what problems that consumers are facing firsthand, right? So and the collaboration with consumers, the empathy that you have with consumers started developing from there on, right? So because you also have the problem firsthand, correct, as versus the offshore versus the on-site. And the skills that I developed at onsite was primarily on client facing. So how do you improve collaboration? How do you improve communication with your consumers? How do you empathize with the problem statement? And those are the three primary skills, right? So that I, started developing in the early stages of my career itself. And then because the number of people that you go to onsite is very less, because it is a offshore heavy model. So the most important or the challenging thing that you would probably have in this kind of a role is how do you understand the problem statement quickly, and second, how do you delegate it, right? Because you have a big team at offshore who can solve the problems quickly and then deliver it, right? Because you are going to be a one-man army there who is going to take the problem and give it to somebody, build solution, take it back to your consumer, correct? Understood. So delegation is an important aspect of it in terms of how do you transition the work from on-site to offshore and bring it back to on-site to the client. So that was a little difficult, because at that point in time it was very early age. So I was not in leadership position, but I had a very big team, right, at offshore, right? And I started learning how do you manage your work, and how do you delegate work, how do you manage people. So that was also another interesting aspect of my work. So that helped me grow as a people manager at a later point in my career. Correct. And then I slowly moved to another industry. So I started off with my life sciences career, and then I slowly moved to an insurance industry. And again, Another important aspect that shaped my career, even my thought process now, is how do you reduce manual work and then automate most of the stuff, right? Or relieve human workers from doing simple things, let the machines do the simple things, and we move to a higher order work, or we go and solve the higher order problems or most complex problems.
Got
So
it.
where I was there in a life sciences industry, moved on to insurance. So I visited one of the automation factories, right,
Hmm.
in this industry, where all of your policy documents that you see, right, when you, like, let's say if you want to go for a insurance, health insurance, or a car insurance, or a home insurance, you get a policy these days, right? So
Correct.
you get a print of the policies and electronic copies too. These days, electronic copies are more prevalent, but those days we used to get in a hard copies of those documents right to your house.
Mhm.
So that you see in US, we visited a factory that was fully automated, right? So as soon as the customer goes and enrolls for a, say, for a home insurance, you're going to have a big paper roll that is going to be at the backyard of a factory. So that paper roll is going to feed through n number of machines, right? There will be like thousands of jobs that is going to take all of these policies. You're going to print it on a piece of paper, and there's a machine that's going to cut it. There's a machine that will fold. There's a machine that will put it inside an envelope, and it'll
Wow.
print the address, and it'll print the barcode, and then it'll even print, stack it in the appropriate rack, right? So that from the backyard of a factory to the the front desk of the factory, everything is automated. We hardly have around 2-3 people, right?
Understood.
So everything is just stacked, and a postman comes to the front desk and then picks up from the the front desk and then goes. That's it. So the this entire process is fully automated, and I'm talking about this is like 15 years ago.
Wow, that's crazy. Like that level of automation.
That level of automation. So I was really excited about what an automation can bring to the table. What is
Mhm.
the value automation can bring to the table. And then so we can focus on more on building good products, rather than focusing on all these manual work, to bring more value to our consumers. So that thought shaped me, a long, in my career. Even now, I've been thinking about every day anything that you can automate, so you can free up your time. Think about something else,
Got
right?
it.
And then I moved on to a retail industry. That's where I spent considerable amount of time, at on-site. Um, and then again, got shaped by a pure automation. When you visit a warehouse, when you visit a distribution center, how do you move things around? Okay, let's say if
Mhm.
you order a laptop, how does a laptop get shipped from a warehouse to a store to a consumer doorstep? Right. So all along this journey, I've been fascinated about how do you bring products to consumers, right? And what goes behind the scenes, right?
Correct.
So it becomes, it is very difficult to envision for consumers right now when you go and order on Amazon or Flipkart, whatever, right?
Mhm.
As a order something, everything goes behind the scenes. There's a lot of work, correct?
Correct.
And you just get product in just probably in a days, probably in hours, in days. Or if you look at any e-commerce delivery, like Swiggy, for example, you order anything in Instamart, you get it in 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that is going behind the scenes, to bring all of these, grocery items to the consumers, right? That is something that is so fascinating. And it is a combination of machine, humans, and process, that
Mhm.
helps move things faster in the supply chain, right? And
Correct.
then to the consumers quickly. And then my journey with Cognizant ended in 2017-18. Oh, sorry, yeah, rather right during the COVID. Uh, I would say, maybe let me rephrase. My journey with Cognizant ended in during the COVID times. That's when I started my transition from Cognizant over to Swiggy. Right?
Got it.
But if you really see the one similarity between both these organizations, they are purely customer centric. Both the
Mhm.
organizations, right? So you always look at the consumer problems first. You look at consumer first. What problems the consumers are facing? Both the companies, right? Any clients that I work with Cognizant and the leadership team there in Cognizant are all they're also consumer centric or customer centric. And And along the way within Cognizant, I started developing a lot of other skills in terms of project management, program management. How do you develop products, right?
Mhm.
Correct. Before moving into a leadership role. So when I moved back from US to Cognizant, that's when I held a lot of I mean, I would say I led a lot of digital transformation programs. Right when I moved back from US to India, and I handled the team size of about 150, close to 150. So that gave me a different perspective of how do you lead people, correct? Because it is not so easy to manage 150 people at any
Correct.
given time, correct? So what principles that you want to follow, or how do you? Typically, my leadership style is always lead by example.
Hmm.
But when you want to emphasize something, people always will look up to you and see what kind of leader you are. Are you practicing it? So that is something that people I always look up to. My leadership team, that are they practicing what they're telling? So if I have to do something, if I have to tell something, then to some extent I should follow that principle.
Correct. Correct.
So that is something as a leadership style that I started adopting. So that team looks up to you in terms of difficult times, or when you want to probably do something, it becomes very easy for to manage teams. And then I started building my project management skills, program management skills, delivery leadership skills. I started moving into P&L responsibilities, right? So you look at account management, right? How do you look at the profit and loss of an account, and how do you do mining? How do you probably look at different customer problems rather than the one that you have right now? That is basically the pre-sales aspects. So that till up until 15 years, I would say the variety of roles that I played is very vast. So it gave me a 360-degree view of how do you run a business. Right? So
Understood.
you literally, when you if it is a project, literally you are a CEO of a project, right? You take care of everything, right? So you take care of P&L, you take care of delivery, you take care of customer, all three. So every project manager is a CEO of that sort. Right?
Understood.
And then I started leading project managers also, right? So from a project manager, I started leading project managers, and I started leading program managers.
Mhm.
So I became a kind of a P&L lead for a BU in Cognizant. So it was a very good experience for about 15 years that shaped my, I would say, half of my lifetime. I would say maybe
Correct. Yep.
So it gave me a lot, no regrets. So that I'm really happy for being starting with my career with Cognizant. And then Swiggy is the next best thing that happened in my life, right? So I never imagined that moving from a Cognizant would and to Swiggy would take place in the first place, right? So, but it did. I mean, in the background, I did a lot of things in terms of how do you improve your skills. Correct. It's just not that on the job alone would help you, but there are
Mhm.
certain things that you would probably need to improve on the sidelines, correct? Not
Got
just
it.
on. So that's when I started engaging with communities. Right? The most important thing that I would even advise to all the students is to see how do you build communities. So there are like couple of advantages of in building communities. One is you get to know what others are doing.
Mhm.
Right? It's just not what you are doing. So it gives you a different perspective of how others are problem solving, and you can take those feedback from the others too, right? And
Understood.
it also helps you to improve your presentation skills. When you organize a community, which means that you're leading something, it
Mhm.
improves your leadership skills too. Correct. So all of those things you can start developing through communities.
Mhm.
And second thing is you to some amount of original thinking is what I would say. I call it as an original thinking. Um, you have so much of experience. Do you have some original thoughts?
Correct.
And you can go ahead and present your viewpoints to a broader audience.
Mhm.
So that also triggered me to present some viewpoints to a lot of conferences, right, where you go and present your original thoughts to a lot of people, so others also can learn from you. Right? So that is also another skill that I started to learn. So that again improved your communication skills to a larger extent, because as you grow up in the ladder, the important aspect of it is the communication skill. Uh, and then I transitioned over from that helped me, I think, together with my experience in Cognizant, the skills I learned on the sidelines, everything put together, I think helped me crack the probably the interview with Swiggy. Right. So
Understood.
and so it is not just that. I would say it is basically a supply and demand match. Right. So I was also in supply chain at that point in time. Okay. So I was also there in supply chain at that point in time, and Swiggy has also kind of started Instamart at that point in time. So I was also looking for an opportunity to probably do a better role. Correct. And then basically I would say everything came together. It's just not that pure luck or maybe a coincidence. There's a lot of factor. It is besides skills, right? It is
Correct.
besides your corporate career, besides your experience. It is
Mhm.
and the supply and demand match. Correct. So everything came together, and then that's how I moved from Cognizant over to Swiggy. And
Nice.
that time when I joined Swiggy, we hardly had very few stores, right, at Swiggy. We were just building even the
Mhm.
ERP at that point in time. Uh, and then I started leading the supply chain charter to begin with. And then slowly progressed in my career at Swiggy, and then became the lead for both e-commerce as well as supply chain growth. Okay,
Amazing. Amazing.
compare Cognizant versus Swiggy. Swiggy is like a startup, so we
Mhm.
don't do a lot of big programs or big projects, right? So the projects here are like max of 6 months, 3 months, right?
Mhm.
So highly focused, I would say. So highly focused, it demands a lot of energy from you
Mhm.
because the laser focused projects, and we do so many experiments because only through experiments we learn a lot, right? So unlike in Cognizant, I have done project programs like 3 years, 4 years, but here it is laser focused projects that gives high impact, correct? So that is how uh, the environment here in Swiggy is. So all projects, programs, products are of high focused, right? So from everybody, it demands attention, it demands energy from so many people. Laser focused attention that delivers high value impact to consumers. So
Understood.
that is, it's like a rocket ship,
Mhm.
right? You really need a lot of energy.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so just taking a step back, right? With this overwhelming journey of over almost 2 decades and transitioning from service to product, right? So just take a step back and talk about your college days. So you are also a graduate from I am Ahmedabad, right? So how would you say the whole you can say the journey of being through IIM journey and that whole environment, you know,
Sure.
help you become a developer or a lead or an engineer that you are today, right? And specifically, like what you can say steps you took as a part of a journey while studying in that environment, apart from everyone, that you could say that made you a level ahead of the game.
Okay. Um, so the main reason for me to pursue, executive education program, just senior leadership program in IIM is when you are a leader, right? So you are not a function leader as such. So I
Correct.
don't manage for a function for functions like finance, HR. So if you are a leader, then you are a cross-functional leader. Right? So
Mhm.
if you want to become a CEO, let's say CEO is always a cross-functional leader. CEO takes care of everything. CEO is responsible for finance. CEO is responsible for supply chain. Right? CEO is responsible for operations. All the nuances of running an organization. Right? So with that quest in mind, okay. So how do you expand your current, skills broadly and apply that thinking in a general management setup? Right?
Mhm.
So that's my primary motivator in terms of joining executive education in IAM. So once I joined IAM and I got selected through some few selection process, and then once you got admitted to IAM, then um, the course content of IAM is top notch, right? So I don't have to market again, but it gave me a very good view about what are the different functions of an organization. Right? So you have
Correct.
courses on finance, you have courses on HR. So it gives you a full 360 degree view of an organization, and how do you improve your general management capabilities. Or if you are a function leader, so let's say I spent my career in supply chain almost like 60-70%. Let's say if I want to move to another leadership position where I can interact with finance, I can interact with HR, or tomorrow if I want to start my own company, right? So how does these functions behave? How should I organize these functions, right? How do these functions talk to each other? So that is the skill that I learned, or that is the education that I got from IIM. So that helps you to understand different functions of an organization, so that you can become a cross-functional leader. Right? So you can take decisions better. So when you
Understood.
take decisions, the entire organization. So so that is my primary motivator. And from course standpoint, it was extremely rigorous course for about 12 to 13 months. You had lots of assignments. You had to go through around 7, 8 exams online. You had to attend courses in the campus. Some of this were remote, and around 3 to 4 weeks of campus immersion, where I had to interact with almost 100 plus peers. Basically, if you are looking at 100 people with 15 years of experience, which is 1,000 years of experience is what you're looking at, right? So it gave me a different view also. So though I have spent considerable amount of my time, or I would say 100% of my time in IT, I never got a chance to look at a public sector, right? So I had colleagues in public sector. I
Correct.
had colleagues from railways. I had colleagues from Indian Army. I had colleagues from oil and gas, where they do projects differently, right? Not unlike IT, right? You can take one project in ONGC will be a revenue of about 1 billion. That's the scale of projects that they do in ONGC, right? Oil exploration is totally different. I had folks from McKinsey, I had colleagues from KPMG consulting. I had folks from construction domain. So that is a unique program which gives you different flavors of different industries. Right? So basically you have unlike minds. Right? So rather than people all coming from IT, you have unlike minds coming from different organizations, different sectors. We had lawyers also. We had a lot of my friends are lawyers, auditors. So it actually widened my perspective. So far I've been with IT for a very long time, and now this program has definitely widened my perspective in terms of if I have to go and lead a company in, say, for example, oil and gas. So how do you do it? So that gives a very good perspective from peers.
Understood.
And
So
right, of course you have a lot of networking opportunity now, right? So I have around 150 folks all over India, not just in Chennai. So the second order effect is I have so many help right
got it.
now. Correct. So that's the thing, right? That I got from IMAN. So the course curriculum that gave me a very good perspective. The professors who were like pragmatists, right? So you call it pragmatists, right? So basically you do theory, you do practical, and you merge both. So and they've been consultants to large organizations. They've been consultants to government. One of my finance professors was, he is on a monetary policy committee of RBI. So the course that he took, it gave me a very good view on, equity markets, capital markets, right? Derivatives, futures, options, right? I've never been through any of these before in my life. Correct. So why does or when does RBI changes rate? Why does RBI rates? So all of those you read in newspapers, at probably at a 10,000 feet level. Now, when any news comes in a newspaper and a Business Standard, Economic Times, I know what is behind that news. Why RBI is taking this stand? Why Monetary Policy Committee is taking this stand? So that information is you'll be able to equip it, and you'll be able to have that firsthand.
Correct. So this whole journey, right? Of course, in the say the days that you spent and the experience that you got, right? And then applying to roles where you're managing, you can say so many people, as you mentioned, the people of around 100 and 150, right? So you can say how, like, what strategies do you put in place to, of course, manage diverse teams and across, I guess you said you're working with also teams abroad, right? And
Correct.
like how do you handle diverse team across locations and time zones, and specifically when you're working on something of that scale, we have to take care of, like, as a lead you have to take care of multiple departments and multiple projects at once, right? How do you manage that whole thing?
Okay, so managing projects is easy. So managing people is extremely difficult. Okay, so that too with 100 people across different locations. So in my career, I've spent 60% of time only talking to people.
Okay.
So my projects becomes very less because you're gonna continuously talk to people, right? So though you have plans, you have strategy in place, it is end of the day it is the people who are going to execute it.
Correct.
So the primary aspect of people management is many folds. One, you have people in India. Again, India is again a diversified country. We all know that no two states are alike. No two even towns are alike, right?
Sounds are
I
alike. Yeah.
towns are alike, right? So I had at least 7-8 locations in India itself. I had teams in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Kolkata. I had teams in Gurgaon, Chennai, largest base. So at least 5-6 locations in Chennai, and I had teams in US. I had teams in Canada. I had teams in Mexico. I had teams in UK.
Mhm.
So the first thing that comes into managing or leading people, I would say, is the cultural difference, right? So you have a lot of cultural differences between people at different locations in India versus people in US versus people in UK and Canada. Right? So you should respect the cultural differences first. So when people say something, we should understand why they say that way,
Correct.
right? The cultural differences is very important in terms of leading people first. Second is, how do you communicate your thought process to different levels in the team? That is also more important, because as a leader, you'll have to step up and step down both. So when
Mhm.
business leaders come and ask for an update on any programs, key programs, a strategy, then you have to tailor your communication differently, because it has to be strategic in nature. Correct. So because they probably won't get into too much of L3, L4 details. Rather, they want to look at how strategically you're driving programs, how strategically you're delivering products. Rather, let's say if you want to go to a team lead or a project manager or a product manager, then your communication has to be different. And you cannot have the same level of communication. So you have to go to a L2, L3 details, and then talk to the product manager and understand, hey, this is the problem that I'm facing. So how do we solve it? So
Got it.
communication, step up, step down, you'll have to do, right? So
Understood.
all my life, all my career, I've been it's like attention to details, right?
Mhm.
I've always been giving attention to detail. It's not like you give a project to me, then I will monitor only a few things. It's not like that. So uh, it is again shaped throughout my career, with working with Cognizant, working with different clients. All of these clients, all of these leaders were having high attention to details. So every aspect of a project, every aspect of a program, you are supposed to know. Only
Got
then you can make meaningful decisions,
got
and then we
understood.
communicate well at different points in the career.
Understood. So, like, as you mentioned, right, a lot of goes majorly into handling people rather than the project, right? So, do you specifically face challenges? I would say when you deal with peers on the same level with like basically dealing with leads, or like I just wanted to know, like, just of course curious about this question versus what challenges do you face when you're dealing with juniors or executive level people or fresh joinees, like how is the like, if to rephrase this, it can like, what challenge do you face with peers on the same level versus people who are working under you as juniors?
Okay. At a peer level, see, there is always a competitive pressure that
Hmm.
you have, right? So let's say if I take a peer at my level in organization, there is always a competitive mindset, right? It is a
Correct.
healthy competitive. I don't, I don't want to say that as a negative connotation. So the pressure that you have from a competition is really healthy, because that's how I think you can push your boundaries to, right?
Hmm.
It's not that you are unable to do something where others are doing. It is you get inspiration from others, right? If somebody is doing something good, how can you replicate it, right? And then improve yourself. So of course, that is a competitive pressure. Definitely, you will have at a peer level. That is one thing that I always look up to. What my peers are doing better than me. It is something that I can take from them and apply at my workplace, apply professionally, and then how do I improve myself?
Hmm.
So that's something that you should take that as a feedback from outside and then see how you can improve. That is on the peers, right? And second, on the juniors, the challenges that you would have in terms of handling juniors, because you have so many generations these days, right? So
Correct.
uh, I started my career as a mainframe, like I said. So at that
Yeah.
time, Java was just beginning to become popular, right? Primarily those days, like 20 years ago, Pascal, basic, programmers those days. But nowadays, people probably wouldn't have heard mainframe. They are like punched cards these days, and
Hmm.
people have a lot of expectations too these days. Right? A lot of people have a lot of expectations. The Gen Zs, YX, all of those. Especially dealing with millennials these days or Gen Zs these days are a little, kind of, I would say, bit challenging, because the expectation differs.
Correct.
They want to kind of understand before they actually want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So why I am doing this? Because if frankly speaking, 15, 16 years or probably 20 years ago when I joined Cognizant, as soon as I got out of training, they just put all of us into different batches, into different projects. And we never asked why. Honestly. Why have we put in this project? We never asked why. Like I said, it is a evolution of generations, right? So, and of course, we picked up those projects and we evolved over a course of time, and then we learned it on the job. But these days, if you go and ask something to juniors, they have a very good thought process about why should I do this? What is the
Correct.
benefit? Is there a value that I create out of this? Which is a very good, I would say, mindset from Gen Z's, millennials, in terms of the expectation difference. Right? We go ahead and accept something, do it, and then try explaining later. But this time it is the reverse, right? It is the leader should explain a lot, right? Why work is important. What is the impact that it has on consumers, and this is why you should do this. Right?
Got it.
So it's kind of an enlightenment that we should give the juniors, so that they are also well equipped, to handle, projects that again has population scale impact. Right? So that two differences that I see starkly these days.
Got it. So, like as you mentioned, right, you were put into a lot of projects when you just completed your things, right? And then, of course, after that, you would have, of course, dealt with a lot of projects on higher level, very complex level, right? So, if you could just, if I have to ask, which was the most complex project in your career till date that you have taken, or you can say pulled off, and then how did you navigate through that, and what impact did it have on the industry or the role that you were working on?
So there are many complex, but there's no one project that I can narrow on. So I can probably pick few projects at different stages of my career. Okay, that I felt very important. In fact, even if I meet people now, they'll talk about that.
Okay.
Right. So in my earlier career days, when I was working with Cognizant, I worked on a migration project. Okay. So another important aspect that I wanted to call out here is it's just not the projects, it's about the leaders who I work with. Okay, they're interested that this person can do this job, right? So that also largely shaped my career. Okay, so coming back to the point, early days of my career, so I was working on one of the complex migration projects. So I was hardly, I would say probably 1.5 years into the industry after the training. This project came into my way that my project manager, said, "What can you do this?" Or in fact, even he did not ask me. He said, "You are going to do this." So there was no tech lead also to me. It was just a 3-4 member team. We had one senior in the team who was very good, peer, I would say. We were never having a competitive mindset at that point in time. So the project manager came and said, "It's a very high visible migration project that you'll have to do. I know all of your juniors and I trust you that you will do it." That's all. That's all was the conversation. And then we picked that project and I led the project on the migration for about 8 to 10 months. And I honestly never thought I would do it with just 1.5 years of experience. And we had to do that directly with client. And I had one account manager at onsite who would guide us if there are any questions, challenges. Right? And we did that in 6-8 months. And in fact, we sunset a lot of programs. I would say around 100 to 200 programs we removed from the system, and we wrote only one COBOL program. So about 100 programs condensed into one COBOL program. That's all we did. So that, everybody was so appreciative about. In fact, even now, even if I see my, on-site manager these days, he would still remember that project. That I remember still that project, and it is still working in production without any bugs. So that is the kind of, happiness that I get whenever I see people, right? The complex program that he pulled off and no production issues till date. People are talking about even after 20 years.
Correct.
So that is a very good impact, which clearly calls out that you made a very good impact on the organization as well as the client, right? So that was on the early days, right, of my career. So that was again 2 factors. It's just not my skill sets. Somebody trusted me that I will do it, right? So that is also of them put together, right? And amazing peers. right? So none of us, felt that we were like above each other. All of us work together, and I'm a very good on-site manager. Everything put together. It's just not one thing that can come. And then when I moved to on-site again, I had a different challenge of finding out faults, right? Because I used to work as an analyst, right? If something went down, we used to do a lot of movements. Let's say if you go to stores, let's say if you go to Reliance stores, right? Reliance Trends, you see different places, right? Let's say you have women's section, you have men's sections, you have t-shirts, right? Different
Correct.
sections. So typically what they do is depending on what is the trend at that point in time, they rearrange the stores. So when you
Hmm.
rearrange stores, right? Let's say you put men's section at the front or you put fashion at the front, right? So those decisions are made once a year. So you look at stores like Target, Walmart, right? Reliance is a very probably a 10,000 square feet store. Look at Walmart, Target, they are like lakhs square feet, right? So 300,000, 400,000. So if you have to rearrange the store, then you have to make those systems also behave that way,
Correct.
right?
Understood.
We were doing all of those complex programs. Like whenever there is a reorg that happens in the store, we used to do that complex organization that would touch the entire retail landscape. All teams, around 200, 300 teams need to come and make the change, right? So that project will run for about 6 months. So since we used to report those numbers to the leadership, right? Basically, I worked on a team that reported the sales numbers to the leadership. So anything that goes wrong in these 200 odd teams will get reflected in that report. Okay, so it becomes my responsibility to go and figure out where that fault is. So I'll
Correct.
have to talk to multiple teams to figure out where that fault is. So that was another interesting, rather complex challenges because you will not have time because
Hmm.
people who you want to talk to are VPs, SVPs of sales. So they will not
Correct.
have patience, right? So time becomes extremely crucial. So all you have been given is like 5 minutes to troubleshoot a problem. So and people will be sitting on your back and then they'll be monitoring you that where is the problem. So
Understood.
so that is the pressure that you have. Plus, how do you solve it, right? So that really helped me in my career. Even now, I had a very steep learning curve those days. So whatever I have learned in like 3 4 years, I had learned in 6 months.
Understood.
So
So on this same note, right? I have a connecting question that what I want to ask. Right. When you said that, of course, you have to deal with various people, time, patience of is very crucial, and you build a lot of complex programs, right? So in this whole planning, right, and execution phase, how do you ensure that whatever you are building or whatever you are solving for is a sustainable and a scalable thing, right? And what goes like, of course, a lot of time and energy goes, of course, into the planning phase because you have to get things right, as you mentioned, right? You don't have time, plus the people you deal with, they don't have time, right? And it's like you have a deadline. So how do you ensure the products and systems that you develop are scalable and sustainable, right? And basically, how does that work around?
okay, when you actually think of building something, there are multiple. I mean, I would say there is a short-term approach, there's a long-term approach, right? So it really depends on what problems that you're solving. One,
Hmm.
if you're actually building a platform has a long-term approach, right? So Swiggy or any other product any other company is a platform. You have different views on the platform, right? You have a BL business line, and you have an Instamart business line, you have a Genie business line. All of these are like products on those platforms or capabilities on those platforms that delivers services to consumers or products to consumers, right? So you have a short-term approach and you have a long-term approach, both. Let's say if you are trying to build a long-term approach, right? That is where you look at uh, a strategy, right? You start with a strategy and then you create products and then you tell your stakeholders that you're going to have different phases or different releases of products, right? You're not
Correct.
going to end with product version one. So you probably move on to the next version of the product, next version of the product, right? As a product manager or a leader, it is the responsibility of an individual to explain what is your product strategy. Right? So let's say if you are trying to build, say for example, logistics as a service. I'm just taking an example, logistics as a service. okay, what is your strategy? Where you are going to operate, right? What is the product that you're going to build,
Mhm.
and what market that you're going to target, right? So all of those things you should think about, and then start talking to engineering teams, trying to build this as a service, right? And that is how. And then the most important aspect of it is start with experiment first. It's not just that you have a strategy; you should ensure that the strategy works too. Right? The planning the strategy is equally important as executing the strategy. Right? A lot of organizations have very good, planning strategy, but when it comes to execution, things are extremely challenging. Right? So
Mhm.
on the ground, things are totally different. Right? That's why you would have seen Elon Musk on the factory floor rather than on the
Correct.
office most of the
Correct.
cases, because execution of the strategy is more important than planning the strategy itself. Right? A lot of the people we used to call it as Gemba. Gemba is the floor, right? Factory floor. In Japanese, they call it as Gemba. Gemba
Okay.
is the factory. So in factories, in production factories, in Toyota or Honda, managers don't sit in an office. They sit close to the factory floor, very close to the factory floor. They can even see the factory floor from their desk. So that's how it is set up. So the execution is very important, or as important as strategy, planning the strategy itself. When it comes to execution, that's where you think about how do you build scalable systems. So if you really have a long-term thinking, then you start building products by thinking, Lord, what is the tech stack that you want to do? Obviously, these days, I mean, everybody goes to cloud, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, those days to do on-premise service.
Mhm.
Nowadays, cloud first, mobile first is the strategy, right? Because this is not going to die down, right? So cloud first, mobile first is the strategy. That is where you start building products on that, right? And again, what programming languages that you choose, it really depends on what works well for an organization,
Mhm.
right? So, I don't want to again comment on specific, tech stack, because it is contextual. It differs from organization to organization. So some organizations will prefer Java, some organizations will prefer Golang, some organizations will do React Native, some organizations does Flutter. So it again depends on your organizational expertise, your organization culture, and what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Right. So that is how the tech stacks are defined. But the principles are the same. So if you look at Swiggy, the principle of engineering is simplicity. So there is no incentive to build complex systems.
Wow.
So no, it's a penny to build a complex system. So this is the one thing that I really admire about the organization is how do you build simple systems? There are multiple simple systems, and as you add more people, you make the systems more complex. Why we are talking about simplicity here is when you build more complex systems, when things go wrong, it becomes extremely difficult to troubleshoot. Let's say if you build a simpler systems, your turnaround time also improves. So a lot of the things you'll be able to troubleshoot quickly because time is of essence. You say an app goes down in India, then you're losing almost crores of revenue.
Correct. Correct.
Correct. So the sooner I bring my systems back up, and I sooner I recover the revenue. So there is no incentive to build complex systems here. So it is always a simpler systems with a simpler approach. So that is what is being advocated across product. Even product also. Even for product also, we don't build complex products. We
Mhm.
always try to build products that are simple. Look at MVP version first, and if that works out, you build on top of. So that is how even the product also functions. That's how the engineering functions in Sweden. So we are all for simplification, and of course, it doesn't mean that we don't have long-term thinking. Yes, there are long-term projects, strategic projects, but in principle, simplification is one of the goals of the org.
Understood. So while you're doing all this, right? I guess of course you must be following at companies like who work at this scale, right? Some models of working, right? Either sprints or agile methodologies, right? So I guess the development teams usually follow sprints, right? As
Right.
you mentioned in your case, the projects are of like 3 months, 6 months. They are not longer projects, which might be further divided into sprints of maybe feature releases or some particular problem statement, right? So for the viewers who are there, right, could you just throw some light on how this sprints work, or like how does that division work out, and how do you cut down a larger project into, you can
Mhm.
say, steps, and how that goes on, and how do developers work around, how does the testing works, review
Right.
works, and all that,
Right.
basically the whole process for that.
Right. So if you look at how we all do this in, maybe a 5 minute duration, right? It all starts off with an idea first. So you want to do something for the consumers. It starts with an idea. So idea becomes your product requirement, right? So and then product managers convert that idea to a product requirement document. So the product requirement documents are typically written in a form of user stories. So you have, say, for example, 6, 7 user stories, right, in the form of requirement, and then that gets passed on to the engineering team. So this is where the execution starts, right? So when the product requirement document, we call it as PRDs, comes to the engineering team, the engineering team looks at it and then sees, okay, how big is this? How small is this? You do an estimation of that, right? Because without an estimation, it is difficult for me to plan, divide the work. So I look at how big is this PRD? Is it small, medium, large? Relatively. We don't do a scientific estimation, rather we do a relative again, because speed is of essence. So we wanted to move quickly, right? So I relatively look at how big is this, and then if it is bigger PRD, is there a way we can break this PRD into multiple chunks? Like, can I do revisions or can I do increments of this PRD? So I'll do version 1, I'll do version 2, version 3, things like that. The end goal is how quickly you can go to market. Right, so that is the engineering thought process or the product thought process. Anything that comes in, the first thought process, how soon I can deliver. So the how part of it is what I'm talking about now. So how do you break that? If it is a large PID, you break it into multiple chunks. Then engineering looks at in terms of what are the solutions, right, needed for buildings. Is there multiple solutions? One best? We never look at one best solution. We always look at multiple approaches because we wanted to debate intensely with engineers. Because I want them to think, or engineers think out of the box. They don't narrow on one possible solution at the beginning. They discuss multiple approaches, pros and cons. We take inputs from architects, we take inputs from principal engineers, and then we figure out, okay, this is what we think is the best solution. Right. So those come from heated debates, arguments. Right. Typically, what my personal opinion is, don't take a decision if there is no argument. If everybody agrees, then it's not a good decision.
Correct.
So the decision will come only from arguments, debates, conversations. Right? So that is what happens with the engineering team. So they take time to discuss all of these possibilities, because you talked about sustainability and scalability. So that is an attribute of this. Unless you decide the pros and cons, think about those, you will never be able to build a scalable or sustainable product. So once that is decided, then we think about, okay, now we figured out what is an approach. How do you design the solution? Then we again break that story down to a different low-level design, right? Low-level tasks, and then we create sprints. So once the high-level design and low-level design is created, then we go into the sprint, and then start iterating on the stories. We take one story, we iterate it on and deliver it in a sprint. Take another story, iterate it on, deliver it in the next sprint. So that's how the execution goes. So, and then finally, when the execution is done, you go for a GTM. There's a GTM team which will pick the product from release and take it to the market. So these are at a very high level. Right? So again, simplification, moving faster to the market, breaking things down to the lowest possible level, and then iteratively developing. These are the core principles.
Got it. So in this whole process, right? When you, of course, it's a model of sprint. When you're breaking these things down, right? And when you put that to market, of course, you would be getting like when you put versions out in the market, you must be relying on feedbacks, right? And of course, in the industry of when you're working with customers or delivery, and specifically at Instamart or a company like Swiggy, which is mostly like customer centric, where you're serving a lot of customers. So how important does customer feedback plays role in the whole development and delivery process? Of course, in delivery it does, but in the development phase also, how important you would say that customer feedback plays a role?
Right. So customer feedback is essential in all phases. Right. So even when you start looking at creating a PRD, you always talk to business, always do a user research, right, and then do a hypothesis on your problem statement, and then figure out, yes, this is the problem that I need to solve. Right. So the feedback starts right from the idea. Right. So that is when you talk to different teams, marketing, user research, different teams, and then you put that in a document. And then in the product requirement document also you get feedback from business. So because we share that document to business, have them walk away, is this the same understanding that I also have and you also have? So
Correct.
you get feedback on the product also. And then moving on to the dev, once you start developing, developers have a different thought process of developing it. So we showcase that as a show and tell session, right? So as soon as I develop a feature, I go to the product team, I go to the business team and tell them, hey, this is what we developed, and I assume that these are the things that you needed. And then that is where we get a feedback at every chance. It's not that I work on a project for 6 months and I do a demo only towards the end. No, the feedback is instant. So as soon as I'm done with the feature, you talk to the product manager, tell them, hey, is this the expectation? And then I get a feedback there itself. Like 2 weeks into the project, I get a feedback. And then I use the feedback to improvise, right? Next story. So whenever a requirement is done, I send it to the product managers and then say, okay, this is what is the feature. Are there any things that feedback that you have? It is just not only feedback. Okay, so feedback, there are multiple aspects. If things have changed on the ground, then I don't want to build this continuously, right? So that is
Correct.
also another aspect, because these days things changes every week. Okay, so then I get a view, I get a sense that okay, probably things changed on the ground. Now maybe I should adopt things differently, or the requirement itself has changed. Now I should do differently. Right? So those are some of the feedbacks that I get throughout the SDLC. Right? And of course, once the development is done, then you do an experimentation on the product, on the idea, on a select segments, right? Probably a Bangalore or probably a Chennai, or maybe select users. And then you figure out, okay, things are working, not working. So if you feel that things are working in an AB population, then you do a slow rollout. I'll then target on Bangalore, and then I'll move to next city, and then I'll move to the next city, then to region, and then pan India. So that's how the entire feedback cycle works. And scale up to pan India is not that simple. It takes a lot of time, because you want to understand every city has its own nuances. Right? So you have to understand the nuances and then scale the city, and then go to Pune. Pune is totally different from Bangalore. Right? So understand the city nuances and then scale. Again, understand Kolkata, scale. So that's how it is.
Understood. So,
Unlike, if you
yep. Sorry, please.
look at Western countries, right? It is, you don't have to. There are not a lot of state level nuances or city level nuances. It's very less, because they celebrate almost nationally all holidays, right? Independence Day, Labor Day, all of our national holidays. Very few regional holidays, but in India it's totally different. Every state, every town, they have regional holidays. So they have different, like I said, culture. Different cities, they follow different consumption patterns, right? We don't take a lot of sweets. Kolkata takes a lot of sweets. So how do you manage your assortments in your pods differently in different regions? Or how do you procure them, as opposed to a uniform assortment, uniform procurement? So it is totally dynamic. In India is totally a dynamic sector. It is extremely challenging, to build business here. It's the sheer nature of the culture and thought process of the people. So nothing else.
Understood. So before we move on to your whole life at Swiggy and your whole career growth there, right? So in our initial conversation, you mentioned that before moving from Cognizant, like a service company, to getting your job as a head of, like, of course, like product engineering in Swiggy, and then to moving up to head of delivery, right? So you did a lot of things. That is something I guess the students wouldn't be interested in what that things were. And even for laterals who are trying to, uh, of course, get this switch, like moving from a service-based company to product-based company. Like if you could talk about in a gist of what extra efforts or what things you did work upon apart from the skills or things that you had on your hand already, right? And how
Okay.
important do you think, right, as you mentioned about communities, right? So when you talk about communities, it is attending those community meetups, networking with people, getting to your knowledge, and maybe delivering a talk or maybe presenting in that space, right? So how important also does that play a role into making yourself, of course, getting a social validation is, I guess, the main reason, right? Why we go
Absolutely.
to meetups and network. So how, of course, that is also important. So if you can just talk about that.
Okay, I would say I can classify that into probably like 3-4 buckets.
Mm-hmm.
One, the primary bucket is anybody who wants to probably go to a product-based organization should have a strong foundation on the current job.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if it is in a service-based industry, then you should have put your, I would say, skin in the game. Like I said, attention to details. Actually, have done large programs. Actually, have executed large programs. Have managed, close to 100, people. So that experience has to be extremely solid, right, for you to even go to the next level. Because if you don't have that solid foundational experience, it becomes extremely difficult to move to the next stage. So I would really suggest that wherever you are, your foundation has to be extremely strong, be it academic, be it your corporate career. Wherever you are, I think you should put your skin in the game to gain credible experience, right? I typically call them as practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you need to be a practitioner. It's not that you sit in one place and then direct. No, you have to be a practitioner, which means you have to put your skin in the game, understand problems, solve problems, deal with people problems. So that is what I call skin in the game. So that foundation needs to be rock solid. There's no, I would say that is the first thing. And then that alone will not help you take the next level, because you probably need to do a lot of things differently, because a lot of people will do the same thing, right? So how do you differentiate yourself from people who are on the job career versus people who join other organization? Is you probably need to add some colors to your resume or to your profile. So how do you do that? Is there are multiple ways. One, like I said, you can get involved to a community. That is first step. Start expanding your wings, right? So within your organization or outside your organization, and then start thinking about how others are doing it. What are the different school of thoughts that you can observe, because as you get engrossed in projects within your organization, you always become like a inside out kind of a person, right? So you know what is the problem, then you try to solve the problem through first principles or other, you decompose the problem. It is basically inside out thinking. Inside out thinking takes a little bit of time, because over a period of time it becomes very easy for you. But is there a way that you can get an outside in thinking, which means that somebody has already solved the problem before, so why should I invest so much of time and energy here? Is something that I can take an inspiration from, because again, speed is of essence here. So that is more important. So outside in thinking is extremely crucial these days, because markets are changing, people are changing. So how do you know? Only through these feedback from outside. Say, how is, say for example, if it is Cognizant, how is Infosys doing? If it's Swiggy, how is Zomato doing? Or any other food delivery partners doing? So what are the projects that they are doing? How are they executing? What are the products that they are building? So that gives a very good, inspiration to you to probably improve yourself too. So you're participating in communities, helps you to understand this. And of course, it serves as a networking tool, right? You get to know a lot of people. I would say a lot of these job changes happens through networking, mostly at a leadership level. I don't think anybody goes through Naukri or LinkedIn. So a lot of, to above certain level, it happens through networking. Right? So, and that also helps you, if you are a really original thinker, like I was talking about earlier. So if you are a really original thinker, people will start noticing you that, yeah, I think this person, they'll start. It is basically brand building, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also can build your brands, personal branding, I call it. So you can, as you start building your personal branding, you become visible to a whole lot of people, not only inside your organization, outside. And then it becomes very easy for you to share your thoughts, get mentored too. It's just not only job switching, no. Let's say if you can get mentored, say for example, of a VP from another company. So that is also good for your career, right? So there are multiple aspects of that. So communities is another aspect. As you start doing this, start in getting involved in some of the conferences, present your thoughts. So that way you get even noticed more, right? And third is, if you are moving from college over to corporate career, start building your portfolios, because you are still young. The primary, I would say the skill that would be needed is coding skills these days. So start contributing to open source projects. There are a lot of open source projects out there. Showcase your projects. This is again a practitioner's view. You're not just a graduate. So then you have to yourself as a practitioner. So how do you build yourself a practitioner without a industry knowledge or without an industry experience? Is by building, hobbies, right, around pet projects. Start building pet projects, contribute to open source communities, put that in GitHub, showcase that on your profile, right? So that way you will be able to at least convince somebody that I'm just not a college dropout, a college, a graduate. I also know how to build things, how to, I'm a hands-on professional. right? I know these technologies. How it's basically validating, all of your skill sets through some credible, aspects, right? It's just not you speaking. Something else should speak for you.
Correct.
So that is also another aspect. So especially this is what I would recommend to all college graduates, people who are probably in third, fourth year. I would strongly recommend them to start contributing to open source community or build your own projects, showcase them outside, put it on GitHub, and then put that on your profile. So that is the one thing that probably would stand out from rest of your profiles if you're a college graduate.
Great.
And then of course, right, and the next thing that you can talk about is internship. Maybe you can do an internship, try to find an internship in any organization. Put your skills to use, right? So it's a step by step. No, there is no way that you can jump from first step to 10 step. No, it's impossible, right? So first step, like I said, build an open source project, showcase that, use that, try to get an internship in any good company, and then put your skills to use, solve real world problem, and then convert that internship to a full-time job. So that's how the entire journey, works from a college to, corporate.
Understood.
And then,
so yeah.
So then when you go to corporate, then you don't stop, right? So you don't never stop learning, never stop doing. So I would say another 4 or 5 years into the corporate journey, the first 4 or 5 years are very crucial. I mean, in my career, that the first 4 or 5 years define the next, I would say, 15 years.
Okay.
It's extremely important on the first 5 years. What is that you do, and how many people that you, how many people that you, I would say, make happy in terms of delivering on. Right? It's just not that on the communication front, but actually through what you do. Right? So that is more important than anything else. The impact that you create on people, clients in the first 5-6 years will define definitely the next 15 years for you in your journey.
Got it. So while we do all of this, right, for a student to go and actually follow the things as you mentioned, right, for even laterals to do this switch. So as you mentioned, right, like communities, and to constantly upscale, and to focus on the first early stages while you're joining a corporates and joining an internship, of course, right, and the foundation skill that plays a very important role, right? So yeah, for the students who are watching, I guess please take notes of these points, that, and even for laterals who are planning to switch into the corporate from service to product or product to service, whatever works good for you, right? This 4 things I think is out there, and you have to just work around that. Majorly, I think, on the foundations, because that lay the base of whatever job or whatever skills that you're working on, right? So now coming to the next segment, like the very interesting ones, I guess, which a lot of students and the other listeners would be also interested in, is about life at Swiggy, right? So Ram, if you could just talk about, right, how crazy is it? Because I know when you talk about like a startup, because it was a startup, right, the whole crazy environment, and as you mentioned, right, it's not that long project. So when we talk about not long project, it means that very tight deadlines. Like it also refers to chaos, right? When I say chaos, it's like something like a you can say a developer version of Wolf of Wall Street, right? People working crazily on building things and making sure that it is at scale, and it is also helping a lot of customers, right? So how would you put like your life at Swiggy, basically, when you transition, like basically the environment and the culture and the experience that you had in Cognizant, versus when you move to a company like Swiggy, which is very, you can say, as you mentioned, right, there is no place for complexity. You get rewarded for simplicity, and you have to achieve that at pace, because you cannot be too late to go to the market. So how has that shift or the experience been in, like, when you be there?
So the major difference that I noticed, between working in a service-based organization to a product-based organization. In this product-based organization, there's no client, because there's nobody looking over your shoulder. You are the decision maker, right? So in Cognizant, of course, I will have to talk to maybe few people to implement my decision, but here the decision is all yours, right? So you will have to decide what is good for you, when to launch a product. Is it good, bad? What is the launch date? How soon we should progress? All of this is left to you. So that was a total stark difference between a service-based organization or product-based organization, that you become a decision maker at some point in time, right? And there's nobody, right? It is just you, and there's nobody over your shoulder too. So that is a bigger responsibility, right? So now that gives you a freedom to, right? Let's say if I want to launch a product in 5 months, I can launch a product in 5 months. If I want to launch a product in like 2 months, I can do that. So that is not the case of a service-based organization, where I have to rely on some of my peers or probably heads or clients. So that is the biggest thing that has happened. So, and it is also I would say a shock to me, because I never got used to make those decisions in my 15 years of my corporate career. So now suddenly I've been put into a place where you make decisions.
Mhm.
They will not come and tell you. They'll say, okay, you are the head, then you take the decision. So suddenly, if you are put into that situation, it becomes extremely challenging. So then you start thinking about how do you do that, right? So pros, cons. So that gave me a lot of, I would say, an independent, ownership, right? If people come to me and then ask, hey, can you do this time? I know, can I do it or not? I will not go and ask somebody, right? Rather than it's like consultative mode in service industry. Here it is, you are the owner.
Correct.
So we have that as an ownership mindset. Let's say if you are running, if Swiggy is, you have founded Swiggy, what is that you will do? If you are the owner of Swiggy, what is that you will do? So we call that as a ownership mindset. So everybody here is an owner, and then they will think what is best for the consumers and what is best for the organization. So that is one of the key things that I've learned in Swiggy, the principle, the ownership mindset. Taking decisions which is right for the consumers, right for the organization, right? These two. That is one thing, and it is like I said, we don't have a lot of long projects. Projects are all very small, maybe 6 months, 3 months, 6 months. So we do a lot of projects in a very small duration. Right? Be 15, 20 projects, or maybe even more in a 3 months, 6 months duration. And like you said, it is to some extent is chaotic, because so many projects, you have only very few people to do. So how do you manage the madness? Is we have process in place, right? Where we have defined that though we have so many projects, these are some of the process that people should follow, or people follow, so that at any point in time it becomes, you put order behind chaos, right? So you bring order to chaos. So that is what we'll be doing in terms of creating, that kind of an environment with the process and with the tools, right set of tools. So we bring order to chaos, right? So we kind of throttle some projects. We probably take, okay, let's not take this project now. Maybe we'll do in 2 months later. Let's finish this first, and then we will do this later. So those are some, decisions that we will take depending on what is important at that point. And second most important thing in the organization is we say no a lot of times.
Okay.
Right? So lot of times we say no to a lot of projects because it simply did not meet the cut. Okay, so people will think that probably this is not going to impact big time. So because you have a lot of projects and you have very limited resources, correct, in terms of IT, in terms of people. So how do you do that? You cut down, okay, what is not important to the org, what is not important to the consumer, and then you ruthlessly prioritize. We call this as ruthless prioritization, right? So product managers really look at, is this really needed? That is the question that they will ask 100 times, and then if they think yes, it is needed, it will go to the next step. If not, it gets shut down there. So what is the impact that it is making? Is it really meaningful to the organization? Is it a needle mover project? Only then we will look at doing that project, because like I said, everything is costly because we don't have a lot of people. It's not a very big organization like service industry. It's a very small organization, lean organization. I won't say small, a lean organization, which creates a lot of value with very less people. So in that case, then we cannot run a lot of projects. We will run projects which creates bigger impact on consumers. So, and choosing those projects, it's extremely difficult, challenging. So we do a lot of discussions. How do you choose project A versus project B? Those discussions will happen, and then we will agree. Okay, this is what we need. And if we couldn't make any decision, we always go look up to leadership team, and then we'll ask them, hey, this is what it is. What is your thought process? So that is how we eliminate projects. and then we'll do the most important stuff for the consumers.
Got it.
So,
So yeah, please.
like I said, again, all of these are multiple discussions that happens in different points in time. So, at some point in time, you will probably do planning. Immediately, you'll have to jump onto a discussion on this prioritization. You'll have to come back on, say, for example, a GTM issue or production issue, release issues. So, all of these are kind of, can come go in between. So, it is not like you put a plan and expect the plan to go as like, no, it never happens. In this organization, you always look at the plan, modify the plan, see how it goes. If some things are not working, modify the plan again. As a lead, you also iterate on the planning. It's not that you put a plan once and then expect the plan to work. No, it never works like that. So constant adaptation, constant learning is the key. So in environments like this, the only way to survive is to adapt, learn, and then come back. So that is the only way that I think startups organizations survive. Right? Learning is the key thing. Learning means I'm not talking about learning things. Learning how your project works. Is it working good? Bad. If it is not working good, then what is that you can do? If you want to revise your requirement, or you want to change your requirement, change your plans, move differently. That is what you should do. So learning and adaptation is kind of a key aspect of my skill. Every day I learn things.
Understood. So, as you mentioned, right, constant upscaling and is a part of a user, like, or maybe a developer or leader. Like, you still follow that, right? So, at Swiggy, right, how much do you think that is like you would suggest for even developers or even students who are planning to join companies like this, right? Constant upscaling or learning plays a role, and do you have internal programs like at Swiggy that foster or that puts that kind of you can say pressure that yes, you have to upskill or you have to keep on learning, so to always stay ahead of the game?
Okay, so I give my thought process. So when I actually started off my assignment at onsite, remember that early stages of my career with Cognizant, I never used to have internet. I used to work in client place. I used to code. So I never had internet. So it was extremely challenging for me, right? So how do you, and clients would be sitting next to you, and you have to code, you have to ship things like 20 years ago where you had no internet. So
Understood.
those were the days, okay, 20 years ago. Now you can learn everything at the touch of your mobile. You don't have to be dependent on anybody these days. So my point of view, again, Swiggy as an organization puts lots of emphasis on learning. They also do a lot of programs on learning. There are a lot of courses available within our internal portal where they strongly encourage engineers, developers to go upskill themselves by choosing courses. It is all there at their disposal. Okay, we have lot of courses available online where we have subscriptions. We have subsidized subscriptions to a lot of leading journals, learning portals where the developers can go and learn things for free, right? But I would say, I don't think that is again aspect of learning, because all of these learnings are free these days. Because like I said, 20 years ago, it was very difficult for me to learn something. Now it is so easy to learn because everything is free. Almost everything is free. If you want to learn coding in Java, you have thousands of YouTube videos. You want to learn AWS, you have thousands of YouTube videos, thousands of material online. So learning is not at all a problem these days. It is about the focus that one should have, right? So that is more important. And I think every organization, every developers, every engineers wanted to focus on upskilling continuously within the organization, outside the organization, everywhere, right? Because that is how you can bring more value to the table.
Understood.
Right? So it is a combination of, I would say it's a combination of both. Take the courses which organization gives you as a subsidized course or free learning, leverage that, yes, and then look at outside too. Like I said, look at white papers. There are so many white papers available outside. Look at white papers and look at the internals of working. That's how you learn the knowledge. That's how you learn a skill. You learn
Okay.
programming language, things like
Right. So when we talk about upskilling and learning, and I guess that whole journey for even a developer who is joining fresh,
that.
is, I guess, that journey starts literally when he enters into an organization, because of course whatever he has learned before and whatever is going to implement, there is always going to be gap, right?
Right.
Because you learn a lot of things and that is not how things work. Because I guess you mentioned correctly that you think it is theory and then practical, but when you come down, right, you have, it's totally opposite. And
Correct.
this is just one of the nuances that prevails, but a lot of it has to do is basically when you learn as a developer versus what you get to implement, because you actually learn development when you start your journey as a developer rather than learning when you're learning in the college, right? Because
Correct.
there you just learn maybe just the tip of the iceberg, or not even that, right? So when a car, just for from your, because you are into leading positions, right? So when you work in a team, let's suppose you're working on some project, literally building like Instamart, like you have to build something, and then you have freshers joining in the team, right? You could say how like how you can say how is the team dynamics or culture, or when you're working specifically, I'd love to know about just your team, because you would know better, right? So how
Hmm.
important, or how we can say value does a fresher's feedback is considered in teams, basically, like since it's joining, and yeah, basically that role, like if anybody wants to join.
Right. So Swiggy follows a stringent, interview process. So it is a combination of you have a coding skills plus interviews, multiple rounds of interviews. So and then that's how the talent is selected or got into Swiggy. Like I said, because it's a very lean team, we don't have a lot of team here. So the selection process is highly, I would say, what to say, it's highly intensive, right? So it's not that simple. So like I said, multiple rounds of interviews with engineers, multiple rounds of interviews with probably directors, maybe even leaders. You probably need to talk to an engineering leader too, so that you all understand what your thought process is, and
Mhm.
then see if you can make meaningful contributions to the Swiggy, right? So that is the intake, right? So and then once you come inside, which means then we all trust that you can play a big role in shaping the journey of Swiggy. So
Mhm.
that's where we believe. Once you are inside the organization, we believe, we trust that you can bring a lot of value to the organization, right? And then uh, the day one you start your training, on what are the different tech stacks that we have, basically on the tech stacks, on the process, on the culture, right, and the day-to-day operations of a developer, right? All of the different facts, all of the different buckets of details you start your journey with, and then slowly, then you start looking at shadowing somebody in a project, right? So small pieces of work is what will be given, and then see how engineers think through, and then what is that they are doing, right? So again, here most of the developers are kind of independent contributors, right? So we all, like I said, everybody is a owner. It's very difficult for us to go take time from many people because everybody has work. So the expectation from engineers are primarily that you are skilled, right? And then you are made to contribute, right? With a few guidance from seniors, leaders, right? So that is how it is. So the moment that you come in, then it's going to be very small time for you to ramp up, and then quickly they'll be put into projects and then start contributing from day one. So that's how it is. So it is a roller coaster ride. It's not uh, you don't have a lot of time. Like I said, it demands a lot of energy.
Understood. So I guess as you mentioned, right, all this process of intake, and you must have also taken a lot of interviews,
Right.
right? So what do you specifically look in a candidate, and like what this whole question revolves around people. Let's say there are some students, and of course they are students who want to plan or who are looking to get into this kind of industry serving customers like Swiggy, Zomato, all kind of stuff, right? So what would you suggest that they focus on? And you as an interviewer sitting on the panel, right, what do you look specifically in a candidate so that you think that, okay, as you mentioned, right, he's ready to contribute to what Swiggy envisions?
Right. So one thing, the primary thing is on the skill sets, right? Whatever they put on their profile, is it be it Java, C, C++, Golang, React, whatever. I think that they have to be, like, again, I want to repeat, the foundation has to be strong, right? If they're saying that they are proficient in Java, I want them to be proficient in Java, right? So that is something that non-negotiable. Technical skill sets are non-negotiable, extremely good. They have to be extremely good at programming. Okay, to get inside a startup, because like I said, all startups are very lean team, very less time to coach people, right? To begin with, so they have to be extremely proficient in programming. In second aspect is a problem solving skill. Let's say if I give a problem, can they understand the problem and then come up with a solution? So that is the most important aspect of any engineer. So how do they understand a problem statement? And not just problem statement, how are they arriving at the solution? Are they considering different approaches, or is it like first best approach? So that is something that we always look at. So what are the pros and cons? What are the approach? What is basically the approach? Right? Before you even go to the solution, we look at the approach to problem solving. We talk about structured approach to problem solving, and then what are the different trade-offs that they can make? Obviously, you cannot build everything, so you'll have to trade off something for something. Trade A versus trade B. So how is the trade-off going to look like? Right? So those are some of the aspects of solutioning. Correct. And of course, you will also have some hands-on exercises where problem statements will be given. You'll be asked to code a program to test your skill. Correct. That is one. If you are looking at an entry level, this is what primarily is proficient in programming. How good you are at problem solving. Are there different solutions you can think of? What are the pros and cons of implementing those solutions? That's primarily it. So nothing big. And if you're looking at a mid to senior, then a lot of other things will come into play in terms of how do you create an architecture blueprint. Let's say Instamart. How do you create an architecture for Instamart? How do you create an architecture for who? Explain your architecture. How do you think this architecture is scalable? Let's say if I build another business on top of this, will this architecture scale? So those are the questions that probably will come for an architect or a principal engineer. So, and that will probably have a deeper conversation. They'll probably give even a case study, and then I'll ask you to probably create an architecture view, a blueprint, and then ask you to explain why you build that way, things like that.
Understood. So when dealing with when you have a team, right? Of course, you have people working at different speeds, because everyone cannot be at the same speed, and the results may vary from project to project. So there might be also situations where you would be facing failures in maybe achieving those goals and achieving those targets. So how do you handle failures? Because I guess celebrating, as it is also important to celebrate achievements, it is also important how do you handle failures, specifically when you're working with a lot of larger teams and people from diverse locations, because you do not know how do they take, like if you shout or if you scold. So how important, and how do you manage as a leader, right? And have been handling for this for almost 15 years now. How do you handle failures at your position?
So one principle I live by is don't raise your voice, but raise your standards. Okay, so that's the principle that I live by. And I've seen in both the organizations, Swiggy as well as in Cognizant, where leaders always raise your standards, but they will never raise the voice. Okay, we call in Swiggy specifically as blameless root cause.
Okay.
So blameless root cause analysis is something that we call. When things go wrong, we do a root cause, and we just wanted to ensure that nobody is pointed. So no people aspect comes into that. So we always blame it on the system or process. Why the system is built this way? Why the process is like this? Can we improve the process? Can we build better systems? In fact, I think I would probably quote it from Amazon also. I think when Amazon had outages, CTO of Amazon, Werner Vogels, right, he's the CTO of Amazon. He always talks about, we probably could have built better systems. I don't know why this is this way. But we probably have to, make the system so robust so that next time the outage cannot happen. So it is always, build better systems than blame it on people, so that the failures become very less. And of course, the blameless root cause is another aspect of identifying causes in the system or process. So those are the things that we follow in Swiggy, that we identify the true root cause. Eventually, it boils down to some manual misses. So how do you probably avoid that in future? Should we probably do a checks and balances, better checks and balances, so the next time when somebody does this, the system shouldn't allow.
Correct.
Correct? So that is how is all about. So failure is all about making systems better.
Understood. So I guess that is on the segment for Swiggy. So like moving on to the next segment where we would like to discuss about tech evolution, because as you mentioned in the very initial conversations, right, that the tech that we had back that days when you started your journey versus the tech that we have today, right? So I would love to start my question with this, right? If you had to start a developer journey today, right, how would you do that?
So I probably would be a developer as such if I continue my journey today, because I have a lot of tools at my disposal now than 20 years ago, right? So probably I would have gone into different roles if I had started my career now. Maybe because I'm so passionate about building stuff, coding. So those days, I mean, with the limitation of technology that we had at our disposal at that point in time, uh, we were working only on primarily VB.NET, Java those days, and we never had cloud. Cloud was just beginning to show up those days, 2004s, 2003s and all. And I think Amazon AWS started only in 2006 or so. So yeah, it was not prevalent until 2012, 13, right? And a lot of these, developer boom started post 2012 or 2015, I would say, right? Where a lot of people started building tools, a lot of people started building programming languages, even. Correct. Cloud became mainstream. All of these, contributed a lot to the developer community, right? And they had a lot of things that are available on the internet to learn things also. So combination of this evolution or explosion of tools, programming languages, cloud ecosystem, plus the learning opportunity that right now you have available free almost, right? Really helps developer these days. That's why you see a lot of startups these days. So earlier, 20 years ago, I used to have a lot of startups, but the number of startups that we have right now is almost like 1000x, 2000x these days, right? It is purely because of this. It is because of cloud. It is because of the tools that we have at our disposal, right? So that is how I would envision. So I would be very happy if I had probably started my journey now than 20 years ago. But anyway, no regrets. But I had learned different aspects of professional career. Uh, so because right now it is all tech focused. Earlier we used to be like process focused, right? We had very limited set of tools, so we were process focused, people focused during those days, because we had to deal with a lot of people. And now it is all about tech focused, right? Every industry you see, it is a tech focused, right? So now even a CEO or a CXO should appreciate technology. Earlier those days, they are all like P&L leaders, right? So they talk about profit and loss, they talk about sales, they talk about margins. Now they talk about tech. Every company CEO, go and look at any conversation that they make, they talk about tech. And rewind 20 years back, never, very hardly few CEOs talk about tech, right? Only probably technology company CEOs talk about tech, not everywhere. So tech is everywhere. So that has become because of these reasons, is what I believe. So very happy to be if I had probably started my career as a developer today. So I could have probably accomplished a lot.
Understood. So with all the like tech evolutions that have happened in the last, let's say, couple of decades, so maybe the AI evolution or the dot com or there was you can say a season, we can call it a season literally. A lot of companies, a lot of startups boomed off, became unicorns. A lot of ideas came up in different sectors, specifically in COVID and post COVID, right? So according to you, right, what would be the next tech evolution that you would be happy that if it came to existence, right, could change the whole tech ecosystem at some different level?
So it is already I'm already seeing that kind of evolution happening with the help of AI. I'm sure that it is a talk of the town these days.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
going forward, you will all see natural language processing interfaces coming up, like chat boxes,
Mhm.
with intelligence built in. So I somehow see that apps will probably die down. So you will probably not using a lot of apps. You will probably use a lot of agents rather than apps, which will do the work for you. So if I have to take an example, you don't have to use any products to do your work. Rather, you would use only chatbots to do your work. That's it.
Mhm.
That is probably the next evolution of tech. Chat GPT, for example, gives any answers you need. It can give you analysis of an Excel spreadsheet. It can give an analysis of a database. So you don't have to build a lot of apps going forward. Rather, you would build agents that can give you answers that you need. So probably in next 5 6 years, this agents will probably start moving towards an agent economy rather than app economy. So that way we will create more value to all the consumers around the world.
Understood. So as you mentioned, right, AI evolution, and yes, prominently a lot of basically, I guess it has impacted all the industries across all domains. Some positive, some negative, right? So I believe in Swiggy also. Like now, since everyone is using AI, Swiggy also must be intensively integrating AI to all the systems, right? So just wanted to know like how after this evolution, right, has development and how feature building and how efficiency has changed with the introduction of AI into building systems.
So I cannot quote on specific numbers, but we've adopted a lot of tools that are available outside, like Microsoft Copilot. We have adopted. We have AWS Code Whisperer. We have included in the developer ecosystem, which can help developer, in multi aspects, right? In terms of writing test cases, in terms of writing other aspects of the code, right? So that is where we started integrating all of those AI tools into the developer ecosystem.
So has it also like because yeah, a lot of there was also fear in between, right? Because literally, I guess a couple of months ago there was a hype, or you can say virality of the concept that you are going to lose jobs because of AI. So what is the take on that basically? Like will people actually lose jobs, or is it like you are lacking to use AI to your benefit that is going to make you lose the job?
No, I think uh, I don't think anybody has to fear anything. I think this happens every decade that any revolutionary technology that comes in will replace an older technology. TV came in and then they said it replaced radio, but we still listen to FMs.
Mhm.
Now internet came in and then we said people probably will not listen to TV. So internet and TV merged. Right now we are seeing OTT. So
Correct.
you will never. So I don't believe in that, but I strongly believe that whichever technology or anything that helps us improve our lifestyle uh, is there to stay. And I don't think we'll have to be worried about it. Rather, how do we embrace it and then take things forward along? Correct. So all we are thinking about is doing an agent doing a job for me. Correct. So I think going forward we'll all have some personal assistants, digital assistants that can help pull up data. So we always do the complex things. So you talk about how do you analyze the complex data, right? So can you look at data and then get insights out of the data, right? So complex thinking is where we'll all move towards rather than simpler work. So that is probably the next stage of evolution. So the simpler work we will outsource it to AI, and the complex work we will do.
So you say that developers do not need to worry. You still will be required because AI
Yes.
cannot literally build things. It can basically complement you,
Correct.
and it you have to work together basically.
Correct. So you have to work together and then use the power of AI to do more things basically. See, you're not going to do less things. Then you have to think about what else you can do more. So
Right.
you're going to think about in that aspect. So let's say if you're delivering 10x impact, now AI has come. Now let's say AI is delivering 2x impact and you are doing 8x. Can I do another 2x impact?
Correct.
So that's the thinking that you should all have in terms of what else I can do. If AI is doing this stuff, is that now I have free time? No, what else I can do? That is the thinking that we should all have. It is not that we should be worried about AI will take the jobs. No, I think, like I said, every revolutionary technology has this, thought process that it will probably sunset the predecessor. No, um, we are not even talking about singularity. We are not talking about artificial intelligence yet. So singularity
Yeah.
is decades away. It'll be very, I don't know whether we will see it in our lifetime, but at least it's still decades away.
Understood. So now, like moving to the next segment, that is where we address the problem of hiring, right? So so that is something I would like your view on, because you have been a part of like organizations at different scale, building systems from scratch to next level, and meeting a lot of freshers, working with them. So we get a notion from a lot of candidates who are trying to apply that there are no jobs available, right? Because of a lot of automation coming into the place, nobody is looking for freshers right now. It is only like people want people with experience. They do not, because we also know, right, a lot of lower level tasks have been automated by AI. Like nobody wants you to clean Excel sheets now. It's like basically as simple as you give it to chat gpt and just ask him to remove every unnecessary stuff, label it, and give you a proper formatted label tech csv it will give you,
Correct.
right? So this is just with the data analyst part. And of course, literally for developers, like you want to build a landing page, chat gpt can literally help you replicate a landing page with the code, right?
Correct.
So what do you think, like when we get answers like from the candidates who are looking to join as freshers that there are no jobs available? So what does it lack? So is it the lack of, you can say, the match of the requirement and the expertise that these candidates have, or is it actually a shortage of, you can say, intake from companies that is prevailing currently in the market?
See, you have to look at the way in which the industry is also going. So skills are also dynamic. It's not that you learn a skill and then you think that you will have a job on that skill. Let's say you have learned, say, Java, and then you cannot never, expect always you will have, demands in Java. No, like I said, skills also are dynamic these days. So now the skills have become like, prompt engineers have become so famous these days, right? People are
Correct.
hiring for prompt engineers. People are hiring for AI experts. People are hiring for probably cloud AI experts. So you should also think about what is the next skill that I should acquire, or what is currently trending, or what is going to be there for the next 5 years. So you should think futuristically. I mean, the past will not help you these days. So I've learned something in the past 4 or 5 years, and I cannot assume that that will help me for the next 10 years. No, I think you should constantly evaluate what is the demand in the market every year, at least every 2 years, and is your skill in line with the demand. If your skill is not in line with the demand, then obviously we will have this gap of not being able to find a job of your preference. And look at how skills are changing from a developer standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and then start thinking from those angle, and then start acquiring that skill. So there is no other option these days. So once you become proficient, like I said, in the new age skill, start building portfolio in the new age skill, and then start marketing yourself. So that is the only way. So your past is not going to help you.
Understood. So one on this thing, right? So this is something like we hear because we as a community, right? We interact with a lot of students day in day out. So one question that like one answer that we get from a lot of students is, so we were not taught this in college. So this was not in the curriculum. When we basically ask them, boss, we have a job opening that is asking this skill, and now is a fresh graduate, is just passed out. This is something that we get an answer from a lot of students. Ki, sir, this was not a part of our curriculum. This was nothing that you are taught about, and now we are getting a job offer from this where they're asking this, right? So this question is something where I would like your personal opinion, to be clear, is on the education system that is there in India specifically, right? So there's a gap, there's a visible gap between what students learn versus what the industry expects, because specifically the developer economy, developer ecosystem, right, is evolving at a rapid, you can say, it is evolving exponentially. The requirements, the skill sets that we require, and the technology for that matter, right? Whereas the education system that also, like, I have been a part of, you have been learning, right, we do not learn the latest stuff there. So do you think that is also like the curriculums are maybe revised maybe once in 4 5 years or something, like, and of course
Yes.
students have to go and take further certifications from XYZ companies or institutions, right? So do you think like that could also be one of the things that might be creating that gap between the people who are graduating out and the industry that is ready to recruit candidate? Because in my personal opinion, I believe that industry does not need developers right now, it needs good developers. So there's a difference, right? You will not be hired just by knowing to code, as you mentioned, right? You have to be of that level. You have to constantly learn, constantly evolve. You should be a problem solver rather than be a developer. So what is your take on that? Like, do you think like solving the education system a little bit or tuning it a little bit so that it matches the industry would also help us, push out? Like we are factory, right? India is basically, you can call a factory of developers, where a lot of good quality and high level developers are pushed out every year, which go to
Right.
senior levels at multiple companies across abroad, right? So do you think like if you fine tune this foundation level colleges, right? Because all these developers are pushed out from IIMs, IITs, or big, you can say, institutions. Like directly from college, there are hardly few folks that would go and do something. So do you think somewhere, if we make some fine tune changes to the foundational level of education, that would help us as a country, or as you can say a leader in the economy, push out more quality developers to the developer ecosystem?
Right. I think, like I said, no, even the industry, people are themselves learning every year. It's not just academic, right? So people, even I am also learning every day because things are changing on the ground. So I understand what is changing on the ground, and then should I look at learning certain things that can help me tomorrow. Right? That is a non-negotiable these days. Like I said before, we were dealing only with process and people, not a lot of tech.
Hmm.
Now it is only about tech, and then how do you use that to solve a problem? That is what is the fundamental now. So now, I mean, it doesn't harm. It doesn't harm. I mean, I would say mm, it is okay to take a look at college curriculum to see if there is a gap between industry and academia, and then fill that gap. And I would strongly encourage. I think all the institutions are doing it. It is not that something new, right, that I'm telling, that all the academic institutions are cognizant about what is happening on the ground, what is happening in the industry through their kind of alumni network, right? Or through the industry academic collaboration. They know, okay, this is how the industry is expecting, and they're tailoring their programs, academic programs, based on that. I mean, they're already doing it, but now things are changing so rapidly. Now we should look at probably also fine tuning a bit sooner. Probably
Hmm.
you would do admissions to a academic program maybe once in 3 years, 4 years. Probably you have to do it now every 2 years.
Correct.
Possible. I'm just saying, because things are changing frequently. Because even IAM says that they will probably look at phasing out 2 year MBA programs sometime later. Because
Hmm.
by the time you finish 2 year MBA, then things would have probably totally changed.
Correct.
Correct. So a lot of academic institutions prefer 1 year MBA because there's not going to be a lot of changes in 1 year, but still you can learn things, come out, implement that. But the longer the duration that you are stuck in one place, by the time you come out, I think 60-70% of the world would have changed. So that is where the problem that you are saying, that when you graduates come out of college, then they see a different problem, and then now it is not there in the syllabuses because of this.
Because
The
yeah,
world,
there's a mismatch of the problem that
correct,
existed. You studied that, but it's not there anymore now.
correct, it's not there anymore now. So why would I need a skill set of that level? So that is the problem. So industry and academy should go hand in hand, I would say, to solve this problem. We don't have to necessarily alter courses too, but it is like a symbiotic relationship, right, between academic institutions and the industry. It has to be a symbiotic relationship, and feedback has to go both sides. Right? Only then we'll be able to probably transition smoothly from academic to industry.
Got it. So yep, I guess that was all that you wanted to cover. Thank you, Ram, for giving your time and for this wonderful podcast that is going to benefit a lot of students, and not just students, even working professional, right? So guys, this was it from the person behind solving a lot of complex problems to building something that you use daily. I of course use Instamart. So just on towards the ending note, right? So just want a curious question that is about Instamart, the 15 minutes delivery, right? So how do you bring it to life? Like literally, like we would have never imagined, right? Back 2 years or back 3 years, like we could have something like this. Okay, if I like literally, I do not go down to get chips. To be honest, I prefer Instamart because I know that at the at the time of 12 a.m. in the night, I have to find shops, but I know that Instamart is going to get me in 10 minutes,
Right.
right? How do you
Right.
how did the team at Instamart pull this off? And basically, like as a end user, right, I am very curious to know about when I place a order, right, on Instamart, what happens behind the scene to the time the delivery guy reaches my home,
Right.
from you,
So
like
it is as simple as that. You have a lot of these, Instamart stores at a very, 3 mile radius or 3 kilometer radius of every doorstep, right? So that is the only way that we can bring, groceries at consumer doorsteps in like 15-20 minutes, right? So unless you have these stores strategically placed in highly denser area within the reach of a consumer, it is going to be extremely difficult to fulfill a need. Because if you really look at the traveling distance of any delivery partner, it at a speed rate of 30 kilometers within the city, which is the speed limit within the city, right? You cannot go beyond a certain limit. So
correct.
adhering to the laws of traffic rules and laws, then you will have to travel at a 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers speed limit. You'll be able to reach the consumer doorstep of 3 kilometers from the store in like 15-20 minutes. That's the simple math. Don't put too much of pressure on the delivery partners. Allow the delivery partners to operate, at the safer, speed, uh, from the store to the, part. That is the maximum time that it takes, right? So if you take a 20-25 minutes delivery, 15 minutes would be the traveling time of or any delivery executives. I'm just throwing a number. It may not be the exact, but most of the time goes into delivering products from stores to consumer doorstep in a safer manner by the delivery executives. That is a last mile delivery is the significant portion of it, which is something that we can never optimize. Okay, nobody's ready to optimize because of the risks involved in optimizing that time. Because if you have to go by 30 kilometers speed limit, you'll have to go by 30 kilometers per speed limit. There's no other reduction that you can make. Okay, so that part we largely wanted to not optimize considering the safety risks, violations, and everything. But the part that we want to optimize is how soon we can pick your orders, how soon you can pack your orders. So let's say if you order a chips, so how soon I can find it inside my store? Can I find it in a minute? Right. So if I can find that product where that chips, for example, sour cream or onion, you can probably order any flavors of chips, right? Can I find it in a minute? Can I pack it in a minute? Which means that I can do picking and packing in like 2 minutes, right? And done. I'm just giving it to my delivery executive. Then delivery executive will take the 15 minutes required time to reach your doorstep. So the optimization happens in the stores, not
Okay.
outside.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
The outside, all the players, right? All players, they don't optimize outside because of the reasons that I told. So we don't want to stress our delivery partners. They want to, we want them to ride safely, deliver, fresh groceries to the consumer doorsteps with the stipulated time. At the reasonable, the speed limit that they want to adhere, right? The safety, speed limit, everything comes into picture, right? So that is, and the optimization happens inside the pod. The optimization happens in the supply chain. Let's say if you're ordering chips, then I should have, sourced the chips in the first place, right? Let's say if you go to the, storefront or the Instamart and then you couldn't find the chips packet, that is my problem. So that is also another problem that I should solve. So how do I ensure that my consumers always find the product that they need in Instamart? That is actually a bigger problem to solve.
The allocation of stores basically with the demand.
Correct. Basically, how do I meet the demand with supply? That is the bigger problem for us, not just delivering goods, right? So speed is definitely an aspect, but how do I ensure that the products that the consumers expect, I show them on the stores? So that is where the entire supply chain comes in. We are all working towards ensuring that the availability is for all the consumers, so that when they come to Instamart for any need, it is available.
Amazing, amazing. So yeah, I guess that was all, folks, and now you know how things work. Like it is not your delivery guys coming to on a rocket to your doorstep. It is the optimization that takes place before the goods are handed to your delivery partners. And yes, as I mentioned, please support the delivery guys. I would like to take this opportunity on this platform, since we have the person from Instamart there. Please do not shout on your delivery partners. They are also humans, right? Please compliment them, give a vote of thanks to them, especially in rainy seasons if they're coming. Support them, tell them. Maybe you could just drop a message that please do not hurry. It's okay if you come 10 minutes late, right? Do not put that pressure, because they're also, trying to help you and bring goods to your doorstep. Right? So that is something I wanted to put out on this platform for you guys, right?
You can
Because
tip, you
yeah,
can tip
yeah,
them too.
yeah, if you can, yeah, please tip them, because else you would have to go to the stores and get that stuff. If they're doing that at night for you guys, a simple thanks or simple compliment would make their day, right?
Absolutely.
So please do that. And yeah, thank you, Ram, for being here, and thank you for having this wonderful discussion. It was very insightful for even me to understand, right, how things are built, and of course it would have helped the students. So folks, if you want to meet this kind of students, let us know in the comments who you would like to host us next. And if you would also want to be on this platform and have this kind of podcast, if you are somewhere into this industry or have achieved something in your life which you would want to share with students and the folks, right?